Hello. This is where I went this morning. Actually, no, I just realised that's for the 9th of November. I went to this, forget that and just look at that. It's actually the 6th of April, but I guess there's another one on the 9th of November later this year. But the Mount Albert Auckland Record Fair from 8:30 till 3. I got there at 10 a.m. and stayed for about half an hour. Held at the Mount Albert War Memorial Hall. Most towns around this country have got what we call a war memorial hall, which was built in memory of the soldiers who died in mostly World War One and World War Two, especially World War One. Yeah, free entry, vinyl, CDs, cassettes, music memorabilia, guest DJs, food and coffee. Yes, there was food and coffee there. You had to pay for it, of course. There was a guest DJ. One thing I say is that I said this because my wife came with me. My wife's not interested in collecting music at all, but she kind of wanted to see it. And as we're walking in, I said to my wife, why is it nowadays everywhere you go, well, it's not everywhere you go, but a lot of places you go, they're absolutely blasting music to kind of create this manufactured vibe of good times. And all it is uncomfortably loud, so you can't communicate properly with anyone. When I was in there, I was trying to people were asking questions or they were saying things. I was like, I couldn't hear what they were saying. They're like shouting over the top of this fucking ear-splitting music, and it doesn't need to be that loud. You go to the supermarket and they're playing music over the speakers. It's not loud, is it? It's kind of just like at a background volume. And why can't it be like that here? It's like, I don't get that. Maybe and it's not about being an old man. I am getting on, but I'm not that old. I've disliked that since I was young. I remember, I hate buying clothes, but I remember going to a clothes shop once, and it was the same thing, in clothes shops. They're absolutely blasting the shit out of music. And it's like, I think Jerry Seinfeld's got a bit about that. Like, what is this, a nightclub? I'm just trying to try on some clothes and get the fuck out of here. Anyway, sorry about that rant. So how was it? It was if we taken all the stock that was on the floor of the market, it was kind of like in one big hall room. It would have been about 75% vinyl, 25% CDs, maybe even 80% vinyl, 20% CDs. There weren't many CDs there, but there were some, and they were, there was multiple vendors there, and a bit hit and miss. Some of the vendors, it just seemed they had not curated their stock at all. They just kind of bought a bunch of shit from other secondhand stores around the city and then just dumped it here and hoped to sell it. Whereas others had obviously gone through and picked out the things they thought would sell. And I appreciate that, not having to absolutely, wade through a whole bunch of shit. Others had also kind of alphabetized and put the genres together, which I really appreciated. One guy in particular makes it so much easier to look for stuff, But I bought 6 things. I got a deal. There was a bit of a premium on the prices, which I hadn't expected. I thought it would have been $2 to $5, maybe 10 on something very rare. But what it was the average price was 5. It seemed that there was a kind of a record fair premium, that they just kind of jacked the prices up because they had kind of an audience who were there specifically to buy music, as opposed to a regular flea market, which is people are there looking around on general everything and anything, and a charity shop, which is kind of much more just kind of get the stuff out of there, make some money for charity. But I got 6 for 20. So most places had bundles that if you kind of 1 for 5, 2 for 10, 4 for 15, 6 for 20, something like that. the first place I looked at had ridiculous prices. $8, $10, just for nothing special at all. Things that you'd find, I could walk into a charity shop anywhere and could reasonably hope to find these kinds of things like Dire Straits' greatest hits, or fucking, I don't know, soundtracks, or Robbie Williams' Let Me Entertain You, shit that's like just everywhere. They were selling for $8 to $10, and I was like, that was the first place I looked at, I was kind of like, oh, is this what it's going to be? Luckily, I went, and some of the other places were much better. So this is what I got. I bought all these from the same vendor. There were probably about 12 vendors selling CDs. No, maybe more like 10. And I looked at all of them. There was one guy I was almost going to buy something. He had a Weezer album I was thinking about getting, but I didn't in the end. And then another guy, he had much better stock and much, like I said, much more curated. So what did I got? Red Hot Chili Peppers, One Hot Minute. My favorite, or my second favorite, I'd say Blood Sugar Sex Magic is my favorite, but this is probably, actually not probably, this is my second favorite album. And I know that's a bit of a controversial thing to say to Red Hot Chili Pepper fans, because this is kind of seen as the black sheep of their discography. And they've been on record, Anthony Kiedis and Flea, maybe not so much Flea, but certainly Anthony Kiedis has been on record of saying he doesn't like this album. John Frusciante refuses to, I don't say refuses the right word, but doesn't play anything live from this album. And I heard him speak about not specifically this album, but not playing albums he wasn't involved because he feels he has no connection to the music and can't do it justice if he's not feeling into it, which I get. But at the same time, if you're a live touring band, especially one with a 40-year career like the Chili Peppers do, I don't think it's that much of an expectation to throw in one or two songs from albums that you didn't play. Like, I guess the one that you would maybe think they would play on this would be Aeroplane and My Friends, because they were probably the two big singles from this. I've always liked Warped. That's a great song. I've always liked Deep Kick. Probably not a good song to do live because of that whole big long intro thing. Coffee Shop. I like that song. One Hot Minute, I like that song. I like the riff on that. So Dave Navarro is the guitarist on this, if you don't know, from Jane's Addiction. And I liked the direction he kind of pushed them in with his playing, is that they certainly kept funk elements, but he had more of a kind of, I wouldn't say metal, let's say hard rock kind of basis to his playing. But you know, listening to Jane's Addiction, they have it's like a very varied type of music, isn't it? Jane's Addiction. It's like not like a heavy metal band or even like necessarily a hard rock band. But his playing, I think, pushed them in that direction. And they've said that they didn't like that. They didn't like the direction he pushed them in. So therefore, this album is kind of seen as an anathema, something they'd rather forget. I've owned this album before. Booklet's in very good condition. Also, like brand new. I owned this when it first came out back in 95. Was it 95 or 96? I think it was 95. Yes, 1995, Warner Brothers. I bought that at the time when it came out. So I'm familiar. Listened to this a lot over the years. And maybe that's why I like it. Produced by Rick Rubin. As much as he produces anything, which apparently is not a whole lot. Who was saying, was it Metallica? Or was it Slipknot? One metal band. You know, a lot of guys. Rick Rubin, it's strange. He has a relationship with some bands where he works with them continuously over and over and over again, and then other bands where he works with them once and then never again. So was it Death Magnetic? He worked with Metallica, and they were they were used to working with Bob Rock through the '90s and early 2000s, and Bob Rock was a very hands-on, present producer. If you've seen any footage and there's a lot of footage out there of him in the studio with Metallica for the Black Album or the Load sessions or of course Saint Anger, he's there from start to finish of the recording sessions, and he's as much as a producer as an engineer, which is his background, and gives a lot of feedback and suggestions and about not just the sound but the playing. And whereas Rick Rubin apparently is much more of a doesn't actually come to the sessions. He'll come in kind of once every a few weeks and listen to what they've got and kind of yay or nay it, or maybe give some kind of vague suggestions of what they could do to change it. And that obviously doesn't suit every band. But maybe it does the Chili Peppers because they worked with him a fair few times. Anyway, that was the first thing I picked up. Second thing, Korn, Follow the Leader. Now, this has got a cracked case. Another one that I own. This came out in 98, and I bought this in 1998. I remember when I bought this back then, I got a free Korn beanie with it. Beanie meaning like, do you call them beanies in America? Knit cap, knit wool, ski hat type thing. And this album was big for me when it came out. And in that latter half of 1998, when Korn came out with their debut album, I had a good friend, Mike, and he kind of always seemed to know about bands before anyone else did. So before Korn really blew up, he had like the cassette tape of it, I think. And I really didn't like them the first time I heard them. Not just the first time, for the first few years, I really couldn't stand them. Like their sound, that clicky bass, the Fieldy's bass. I just thought it was tuneless and boring, the music in general. The first thing that kind of I felt some positivity to was the song on Life is Peachy, Adidas. I really like the guitars in that, and I like the kind of the cold feeling of that song. And then when this came out, I heard the single, which was Got the Life, and I don't know, it spoke to me as a 17-year-old young man. And I bought the album, and like I said, for that second half of 1998, kind of my last year of high school, Korn was it for me. They were my favorite band. I went back and listened much more to their debut album and bought Life is Peachy as well, and kind of came to appreciate those things a lot more. But this album in particular, I have so many memories with it. And when I listen to the music now, there was a period there where I kind of went off them. I'd say after Issues and Untouchables, when Untouchables came out, I just kind of thought I was kind of done with them for a while. And then I kind of dipped in and out of them throughout the 2000s, but really not listening to anything. The album that I really liked most recently was Nothing. Is it The Nothing or just Nothing? The one from 2019. That's a great album. That's got a lot of good songs on that album. But I can listen to this album now and still really enjoy it. There's some songs on it that are not so good, such as the one he does with Ice Cube. I don't really like that much. And the one he does with Fred Durst. All in the Family. What's the one he does with? Oh, Children of the Corn. So Children of the Corn and All in the Family. I could take or leave those. Not take. I could leave those. It's on, great. Freak of the Leash. I've heard it so many times, but it's a great song. Got the Life, great. Dead Bodies Everywhere. It's a good song. BBK, that's a great song. Pretty, really got like a really dark atmosphere, that song. That's like, yeah, that I haven't listened to that song in a long time, but that's actually like quite a step up in songwriting for them when you consider the stuff they'd done before this. Reclaim My Place, that's a great song. Justin and Seed, not bad. Camel Tosis, that's the one they did with the guy from Far Side. You know, that hip hop group from the 90s. Can't Keep Running Away, Can't Keep Running Away. They did that song. And then My Gift to You, which is 15 minutes long. I actually quite like that song. And then there's a hidden song I remember, the one they do with, is it Cheech or Chong? Either Cheech or Chong from the Cheech or Chong movies, Earache My Eye. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, that one. And there's a bonus disc. Now, this might be the same bonus disc when I had it. Yes, it is. Is it? Actually, no. Hang on, it's a different one. All in the Family, 4 different mixes of All in the Family. And the one that I had, no, actually, hang on, I don't know what I'm talking about. I think maybe it was the same one. Anyway, you can see this case is a little bit worse for wear, which I'm not surprised. Look, it's just hanging on by a thread, this little thing here. And the front of it is cracked. But even at the time when I had this back in the late 90s, my 2 CD case thing was fucked as well. It was all smashed. They really were not built for longevity. So I might have to look at kind of I've got a few spares around, so I might replace that because that's a bit of annoying. The artwork was done by Todd McFarlane, famous from Spawn. Here's the lyrics, and then there's the band picture over here with John Davis. I remember, all tangled up. And the band over here, of which nowadays, so Monkey, he's still in there. Head, he obviously took about a 10-year break, was it? 9 years. He was pretty badly addicted to drugs. And then I think he got clean and found Jesus. And I mean that, like he had he was born again, or he had like a personal experience with God, wherever that was. And he left the band for close to a decade. And I've actually read 2 of his books. The book where he left and his finding God moment. And then the second one, which is even more interesting because it kind of deals with when you go through those kinds of life changes. You kick drugs, you get healthy, you leave what he thought was a toxic situation of the band, and he found religion, and that kind of gave him a stability in his life. You do those things, and then kind of like a movie or the way we imagine, we think, well, okay, and he lived happily ever after. But reading that second book, you actually realize he had still had a lot of struggles. Like he made a lot of bad business deals. He got involved with some shady guys business-wise and lost millions of dollars. He had huge problems with his daughter. Not huge problems. He had problems with his daughter. And his daughter was the reason why he kind of did all this in the first place, because he was so he didn't want to bring her into that life of drugs and all the rest of it. And so he left the band and he dedicated himself to being a father to her, but she kind of went off the rails a little bit. And he felt he had a lot of insecurity around that because, he knows what happened to him. Anyway, I don't want to kind of recount the whole book. It's interesting. And I know a lot of people are turned off by the religious aspect. And kind of I am to an extent as well. But at the same time, I've kind of come to just kind of accept that stuff more nowadays where it doesn't really bother me. Like, well, why would it? I guess if people try and force their beliefs on other people, that can be annoying. But anyway, I recommend that book. Anyway, he's back in the band now. Jesus, I'm really blabbing on. David Silveria, he went on hiatus, I should say hiatus like that, hiatus, in about 2006. And he had some physical issues with drumming, like nerve damage. I think he had carpal tunnel syndrome in his wrist and he couldn't drum for a while. And he had kind of back pain and other bits and pieces. So he left without any ETA of when he was going to return. So they got another drummer. They got Ray Luzier, I think he was the drummer in David Lee Roth's solo band and a few other projects. He's kind of like a professional session drummer. He'd worked with a lot of acts, and they brought him into the band kind of as a full-time member. Because when Head was out of the band, they hadn't brought in a full-time replacement for him. So when there was band pictures, it would just be 4 of them. Whereas they would have sometimes touring guitarists on stage or even backstage, which is pretty funny. But they never actually got an actual replacement for him. But for David, the drummer, they did get an actual replacement. When you see band pictures nowadays, Ray is in the pictures. He's listed on everything as a fully fledged member of the band. I don't know if he's fully fledged, maybe is too far. He's probably not in the partnership of the original members, obviously. But anyway, then there's Fieldy, the bassist, who's kind of very responsible for their signature sound, as much as I disliked it. He also had a come to Jesus moment, and he kind of was born again as well. But he went on, again, hiatus in about 2020, and he still hasn't returned to the band. And there's a lot of kind of conjecture about what exactly is going on. They are using Ra Diaz, who is from Infectious Grooves. Is he from Infectious Grooves? Isn't Robert Trujillo Infectious Grooves? Anyway, he's played with some bands, but he's not considered a fully fledged member. You know, they don't include him in the band pictures or anything. So, I don't know exactly what's going on with that guy, to be honest. And then there's John Davis. Obviously, he is the front man, and he's been in the band the whole time. Anyway, enough talk about Korn. The next one you can see there I got was the Opiate. Is it an EP? I think it's an EP by Tool, which came out 1990, 91, 92. So yeah, Undertow came out in 93. And yes, I'm pretty sure it's just an EP. You can see it's just 6 songs. They've actually redone the cover of that with what's the guy's name? Alex Gray. If you know Alex Gray, the artist who does a lot of that kind of psychedelic inspired art of, the Lateralis music video, where it has the kind of he also did the artwork on something, I think, on Lateralis itself. Anyway, he redid it, and so it's the same concept of a priest as a kind of an insect, like a spider or something. Well, he's got 9 arms, so it's not going to be a spider. A spider's got 8 arms, doesn't it? There's 6. What am I saying? 9, 6. Fucking hell, that's embarrassing. Anyway, Tool is a band that I'm trying to get their discography on disc, because I've owned bits and pieces over the years. Currently, I have. I'm trying to think what I've got. Lateralis and Anima. I don't have 10,000 Days, and I don't have the most recent one. Was it Fiera Inoculum? But now I have the Opiate EP, which has got some decent songs. The early Tool, this and Undertow, I don't like as much as Anima and Lateralis and 10,000 Days. I feel that they really, Anima is where they really hone their sound. But it's still good, still some good stuff. Anyway, next one, ISIS, In the Absence of Truth. ISIS are a metal band. What kind of metal would you really describe it as? Kind of got some elements of like, so let's put on Ipecac, which is Mike Patton's label. trying to say, like neurosis. I got some kind of neurosis elements in their music. What do we call that? Kind of like metal, post-metal, some atmospherics put into it. But they're a good band, and I've never owned any of their albums physically. I have a lot of their stuff downloaded and listened to them on Spotify a lot, but I've never actually owned an actual album. They had a bit of trouble when ISIS, the Islamic fundamentalist terrorist group, was kind of in the news a lot. And so what did they do? I followed them on Facebook, and I think they did something. Oh, that's right, the band ISIS. That's right. Instead of just being ISIS, these guys put, every time they kind of advertise themselves, that's the band ISIS, which is kind of shit, isn't it? ISIS itself, that word, ISIS is an Egyptian god, isn't it? And it sounds, for an evil, scary terrorist group, ISIS is it's like kind of like a James Bond, like, remember James Bond Jr., the cartoon? I remember the baddies, they had a group, and the group was SCUM, scum, but it stood for something like, I don't know, Society of blah, 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 blah. And it kind of sounds like, a hive of villains. Anyway, number 5, Bjork, debut. Her first album, at least her first solo album, as the name would suggest, came out in 93. This seems to be a little bit water damaged, but it's not sticking together. So, what's to say about Bjork? I have a lot of Bjork albums already. I've listened to Bjork since I was a teenager. I like a lot of her work, though she has a lot of stuff, and it can be a bit, I like it in kind of, not small doses, but I couldn't imagine listening to like 3 albums in a row of Bjork. It would get a bit much. But I really do like her first 3 or 4 albums. Looking at this, there's so many classic songs on this. Human Behavior, Venus as a Boy, Big Time Sensuality, Violently Happy. It's a great album. Bjork. And lastly, Dream Theater, Images and Words. Dream Theater. Dream Theater are a prog rock, prog metal band. Prog metal, I wouldn't say prog metal, because prog metal kind of implies a different sound, much more metalish. These guys, I guess they've kind of gone prog metal in their later albums, but I'd say they started a prog hard rock prog band. This wasn't their first album, but this was the album that maybe broke them to whatever extent they were ever really broken, because they've never really been a huge band. But that song Pull Me Under on this album, I think that did some numbers, or kind of it did decently on MTV and sales wise. I'm not sure exactly how much or what, but yeah, that's kind of considered to be one of their biggest songs, at least in the mainstream. And yeah, the mainstream's not really the right word, because if I ask the average person if you know Dream Theater, most people wouldn't know them. But of those who do know them, I'd say Pull Me Under would be one of their biggest songs. Some other good songs on this: Metropolis Part 1, Under a Glass Moon, Learning to Live. A little bit cheesy, Learning to Live, to be honest. But now, who's in the band at this time? Can't even recognize them. I can recognize John Myung, the bassist. Which one's Mike Portnoy? Is that Mike Portnoy? Must be. And then is that James Labrie, what his name is? And that's John Petrucci. They look so young, and it's hard to, they all look the same basically. And I know they had a different keyboard player at that time. It wasn't Jordan, what's his name? Rudness, whatever his name is. he didn't come into it later. It might have been, what was his name? Oh, this is a bit closer. That is John Petrucci. I recognize his eyes. I'm pretty sure that's Mike Portnoy, but it fucking doesn't look like Mike Portnoy. That's because he doesn't have a beard. Which, incidentally, Mike Portnoy's back in the band now, which is kind of big news. That's definitely Jong Yong. He's easy because he's Korean American. I assume that's James LeBray. Because he's got a beard mostly nowadays as well, and that must be the keyboard player. Who was the keyboard player? It was Kevin Moore. I thought so. Yeah. So we see at this time that they rarely share the lyrics around. Paul Meander is written by lyrics by Kevin Moore. Another Day, Petrucci. Take the Time, the whole band. Surrounded, Kevin Moore. Metropolis, Petrucci. Under a Glass Moon, Petrucci. Moore. Myung did Learning to Live, which apparently is about AIDS. But in the later works, the names are up there. God, I'm an idiot. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, the later works, Mike Portnoy was writing a lot more of the lyrics. But it's interesting that Kevin Moore was so heavily influenced in the lyric writing in that one that he was out of the band relatively soon afterwards, which would have been, quite a big... He wasn't someone who wasn't contributing, he was contributing quite a lot. Anyway, not bad. To be honest, I probably had a little bit higher hopes for the market. I was hoping to find there'd be more electronic stuff and maybe more metal. And I got some metal there, but not... it was kind of a lot of the same stuff. It's hard to kind of describe, but kind of like things almost like... I don't know. But, in saying that, 6 CDs for $20, I think that's a pretty good deal. What's that? I'm terrible at maths, but it's $3.50 per CD, roughly. And those are some good CDs there. They're not... these are not things you would find easily. Which one are you? Doubt you'd find that. You might find that somewhere, because I found Bjork at charity shops before. Maybe that, but I've never seen that. In 5 years I've been searching, I've never found it, so that's the thing. Anyway, yeah. I blabbed a lot there, haven't I? I blabbed about Korn's history, probably a bit too much, but, someone might find it interesting. While we were there, my wife picked up this. There's another one in May in Howick. Howick is the eastern suburbs. It says vinyl sale, vinyl CDs music. I won't be going to that. So if you want to be a vendor, it's $35 per table. And actually, if you got some... I'm not saying you, as in the person watching this, because no one's in New Zealand who's watching this, but it made me think that I actually might try and sell there one day. Because $35 per table, it's not a huge outlay. I don't know, actually, yeah. Might take a few years to get some stock together to actually, because I've got things I want to get rid of, but a lot of the stuff would just be rubbish, and no one's going to want to buy that. But anyway, something to think of. The other thing, this is the other advertisement my wife picked up. New Zealand's biggest 80s and 90s expo, the retro event. I guess that's meant to be Voltron. Voltron with the Dragon Ball, playing a Game Boy, with Optimus Prime's arm, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, eye mask. What's that? Is that Sailor Moon symbol? Star Wars, I assume, lightsaber, Pokemon balls. What's the tie? Who wears a purple tie? What's that? Samurai Pizza Cats? Remember that? Samurai Pizza Cats. June 1st. King's birthday weekend. Okay, it's a public holiday. Where is this? Oh, what the fuck? Dewdrop Event Centre. I think I know where that is. That's out in South Auckland. No, I wouldn't be going there. Try to avoid going to South Auckland, to be honest. Anyway, we'll leave it there. It's a long one. But, Yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye.